All right, everyone. We're going to get started here in just a little bit, 1 minute, less than a minute. If you have a public comment, please fill out a card and provide it here to our Sergeant at Arms, and we'll make sure that you get your opportunity during the public participation. So with that, we'll get started here in just a few seconds. Council, are you all ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Today is February 21st, 2023 at 6:00 p.m. We are at 100 Polk Avenue here in the beautiful city of Cape Canaveral for our regular city council meeting. Here, I call this meeting to order. And Councilmember Davis, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's a lot.
You would like for me to? All right. So we've got some folks listening in virtually here today and participating. We just asked that if you are participating on our webcast, please go ahead and mute yourself. For those of you, we have 4 of the 5 council members, and Mayor Pro Tem is participating virtually. And with that, City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Davis?
Here.
Councilmember Kellum?
Here.
Mayor Morrison?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Raymond?
Here.
Councilmember Willis?
Here. Thank you very much. Everyone is here. This time, we're going to go ahead and approve the agenda as written or make any amendments. Council, anything we want to change? Good. Good to go?
Yes.
Motion we approve.
Good. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I wanted to pull the one about the traffic study, number 4.
So item number 4 on the consent agenda. You want to pull that to discuss it?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. We'll get to that in just a second. We're just making sure that the approval of the agenda as written, you want to make any changes to the order format?
No, just number 4 for discussion.
You got it. Thank you. All right.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion by Councilmember Willis, second by Councilmember Davis. City Clerk?
Councilmember Davis?
4.
Councilmember Kellum?
4.
Mayor Morrison?
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Raymond?
4.
Member Willis?
4.
All right. This time we're going to go on to the presentations and interviews portion of the meeting. First one is a presentation of proclamation declaring March 2023 as Irish American Heritage Month in the city of Cape Canaveral. I believe I have that proclamation right here. Is there someone here to receive it?
Mr. Keith Reynolds?
Mr. Reynolds, if you want to come forward here, I'd like to present this to you. And City Manager, would you please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The Ancient Order of Hibernians is America's oldest Irish Catholic fraternal organization, founded concurrently in the coal mining region of Pennsylvania and New York City in May 1836. Per the order, Irish Americans in Florida have provided leadership and service to their state, counties, and local communities. Irish Floridians can look back with pride on the legacy of their Irish forebears who have contributed significantly to education, business, sports, literature, science, engineering, medicine, science, and the arts. Today, we continue to recognize and honor the service of our current state, county, and town city council leaders and the contributions of fellow Irish Floridians. Mayor.
First, I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council for recognizing the efforts of the Irish America. My name is Keith Reynolds. I am the Florida State Treasurer. I'm also the president of the division, the only Brevard division in Melbourne. By the way, just a point of note, the very first division was here in Cape Canaveral. And I'd love to get that up in Melbourne. We run the parade down in Melbourne, which will be on the 18th this year. And I'd love to have this come out and join us. That'd be great if you could. Thank you so much for recognizing the efforts. And good evening. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. This time we're going to receive a presentation by BEEP, Representative Brandon Corsentino. I believe you're here. Hi, Brandon. I assume you want to come forward and go ahead. City manager, anything here, or we're good to go?
Zach will introduce it and take off.
Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
Tonight, we're going to be talking about BEEP Incorporated. BEEP is a micromobility company that has had some high-level discussions with Space Coast Area Transit and the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization. They are, like I said, a micromobility company that is doing last-mile delivery services for passengers at various sites across the United States, and many of which are in Florida, to help out with mobility, electrification efforts, emissions, things like that. And we just kind of wanted to put on your radar, as this is something that is, around. It's a technology that it's advancing quite quickly, and it's something that we may want to take advantage of in the future, especially with things like the aquarium coming up. So with that, I'll hand it over to Brandon, and he'll explain BEEP. Great name.
Thank you, Zach, and thank you for being an advocate for this. And Mayor and Council, thank you for having me today. I think we have some slides. We'll get started. So as Zach mentioned, BEEP is a company headquartered here in Florida. We've been in Orlando, Florida, in the suburb of Lake Nona for over 3.5 years, which is where we are headquartered and really focus on our operations. But to understand the concept of micromobility, our focus is on autonomous shuttles. We are focused on the pillars of what can truly make a difference for autonomous mobility. That starts with transforming our communities. We understand that we need to create equity and everybody to be able to live independent, which means giving them access and the means of transit solutions that are in their community. I was able to understand the dynamics of this community with a host of Zach and see that there is an existing trolley service. And while that trolley service is very valuable, we want to understand the environment that we serve, giving people the opportunity to go to places of employment, for entertainment, and for their own medical, grocery, retail needs on a day-to-day basis. So our vehicles are all electric. They also are ADA compliant. They will help as shuttle services because the capacity of our vehicles are anywhere from 8 to 20 in reducing the need for personal vehicles. So you'll be able to access your community in this whole area without the dependency on personal vehicles, reducing the traffic congestion and also parking congestion in the area. Furthermore, with the great hotel network that is in the city of Cape Canaveral, having a service of autonomous shuttles like this for first last mile connectivity, as Zach describes, will be able to improve the economy in which those that are coming, whether for a cruise or family destination, are able to access all the local businesses in the city of Cape Canaveral. Next slide, please. So BEEP is focused as a micromobility company on servicing underserved segments of road users. During the workshop, we're seeing how many road users are interested in using golf carts. That is a very valuable means of transit. And while you have various means of transit in terms of golf carts, cars, pedestrians, cyclists, we need to prioritize safety. The function of autonomous technology is starting with safety. So when we look at how we operate as road users today, there's over 50,000 fatal accidents in the United States. 94% of those are a result of human error. These vehicles, even our most focused times when we're not making errors, are going to be a third of the time in reaction to the human eye. And so when you think of about reaction time that is a third of that of the human, even at 15 miles per hour, if a vehicle was stopped by a human, this vehicle would stop 10 yards sooner than that of a human. As a huge football fan, that means being stopped at the line of scrimmage versus a first down, which is the stopping point that can save lives. And that is the focus of this technology when done right. For BEEP as a business, our shuttle form factor is creating the environment to reduce that traffic. And we also focus on what you see there as level 4 autonomy. I can share with you and nerd out about the different levels of autonomy from level 0 to level 5. Level 5 is the concept of point-to-point technology. That is the concept commonly known as robotaxi. Level 4 is working within a geofence region, which allows the technology and the human-in-the-loop environment that Beep serves to understand the environment for safe operation. Beep is an agnostic service provider, and we have 4 manufacturers that we work with within our suite that will allow these vehicles to service the different functional use cases, whether for tourism and being cognizant of suitcases, or for high pedestrian or personal movement to help with employment access or things like grocery shopping. Next slide, please. To date, Beep has been able to support various use cases. We have actually operated more autonomous vehicles throughout the United States than any company in the world, and that's in our 3.5 short years. We operate with a turnkey solution that's resulted in over 100,000 hours, and since I've sent this to Zach, it's now over 110,000 hours of operation in mixed use traffic. These vehicles do operate in the same roads that you or I would drive a vehicle. We've been able to move over 100,000 passengers, and we've built a curriculum to train first responders on the technology and the function of these vehicles. In doing so, we've been able to identify partnerships and use cases for deployments throughout cities, universities, medical campuses, corporate campuses, and even VA hospitals throughout the United States. Next slide. For us to do this and to instill confidence in a very novel technology, which generates a lot of excitement, but is not functional without the ability to adopt ridership, we create a turnkey solution. We do this in the concept of integrating these manufacturers, and I use the analogy of a company like Delta. You would not go to Boeing 737, acquire that vehicle, and think you can operate a commercial airline. We integrate manufacturers into a service solution, much like Delta, into an autonomous mobility space. And so the shuttle service meant for the end user community knows that it's providing a high level of service for the residents and those that come to the community. That requires strict planning, in which right now Beep works with the state, city, and federal government in every operation, in which we have actually worked in a consortium with the federal government through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, where we give access to all of our data and operation to the federal government to drive regulation as associated autonomous mobility networks. We deploy these vehicles utilizing a network of staff that are focused on maintenance, operation, and support. These vehicles are staffed with an operator attendant on board. And while they are autonomous, that person is there for any necessary manual intervention, but also education to the community to support any questions they may have. And then we manage these routes through a remote command center that is headquartered in Lake Nona. So fortunately, we're very close to where a lot of this is happening behind the wall. Next slide. As Beep has diversified itself, operating in 7 states and headquartered here in Florida, where we've had the most operations, we've identified 8 different functional use cases that can service communities. When you look at these 8, you think about the city of Cape Canaveral and how we can support the port access, jobs, a multimodal network with solutions like personal golf carts. We can connect people to where they need to go most and feel a sense of independence without a personal vehicle. It is all about what we call first last mile connectivity, but within a controlled environment. Next slide. And so you can see here the different environments in which we have done use cases, spotlighted by elements like Yellowstone National Park, where in a 91-day period, we moved over 10,000 passengers. And also by a partnership with Jacksonville Transportation Authority, in which we are converting their existing Skyway system to a network with ramps and an at-grade mobility service, which will feature 80 autonomous vehicles, making it the largest AV network in the world. Next slide. And while Beep's been able to have this success in just 3.5 years, and we're backed by key investors like Intel Capital, we do it in a controlled environment. We also do it at the blazing speed of 15 miles per hour, working on posted speed limits of 25 miles per hour or less, which is optimal for the city of Cape Canaveral. We also are approached by manufacturers that want to enter this space. It is spotlighted at the Consumer Electronics Show here in Las Vegas in January, where we revealed 2 prototypes that will be hitting the market at the end of next year. One of those being this whole-on vehicle, and for those that are interested afterwards, I left Zach some of the pamphlets. This is a vehicle that is changing and redefining the class of autonomous mobility. It utilizes a technology stack of what is called LiDAR, radar, and cameras to integrate with communities, and Beep is integrating a service experience stack that will make sure this vehicle has various use cases and reliability to get you where you need to go. On top of that, next slide, we also introduced a partnership with another tier 1 auto manufacturer that uses their technology and their manufacturing processes to service vehicles like that of Volkswagen, Ford, Volvo, vehicles you or I use today, and are transitioning it to an autonomous vehicle solution. Both these manufacturers, while they are headquartered in Germany, have made a commitment to build a manufacturing plant or use existing ones in the United States to meet Buy America compliance, and has acknowledged Beep as the service provider for their vehicles for autonomous mobility across the country. Beep is focused on making sure we do this in controlled and successful environments. And so while both these vehicles, we're looking at deployments at the end of next year, we have solutions right now that we understand and have deployed for 3.5 years for pilot programs, and also are supporting with consulting efforts, feasibility networks, and feasibility studies. So thank you to Zach, the team at the city, and the council and mayor. I will welcome any questions you all may have.
Thank you, Brandon. Council, any questions?
I just would like to say, have you approached the port for these vehicles? Because there's a lot of people walking from cruise ships now to different places. I think that would be really great there. And I think for our city would be really great as well. But I think the port with all the cruise ships coming in, this would be awesome for them.
I agree. We have not had conversations with the port yet. You know, I will say I lead business development for the Eastern US, and I'm a team of one. So it takes a network and a support team through those interested to learn more. And so if there's connectivity there to have those conversations, we'd be happy to do so. We have had conversations with Space Coast Transit and with the local transit planning organization as well. And so there's different developments happening. We've actually had conversations also with Kennedy Space Center.
Another question, sometimes we have had in the past art shows and different things at the parks, and our problem is parking. So would this be something that would be available for people to park somewhere and be shuttled to an event?
Yeah.
That would help out.
So the vehicles right now operate on a fixed route system, but you can program 8 routes per vehicle.
Okay.
And then we can program which route it's operating on. And so we would be cognizant of any sort of event schedule.
Okay.
The platforms that I shared with you that will reveal themselves in 2024 for operation actually have a technology to communicate to each other. And so as a routes adjust, as a tree branch falls from a 3 o'clock storm that we all are familiar with, it would communicate that to other vehicles to make any sort of detours necessary for safe operation.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I was just going to say, I think this is really exciting, and I like the fact that it's ADA compliant. I think that's a wonderful thing. So I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Willis?
And I will extend an invite, as Zach has now come to our office twice. Anybody that would like to come to the Lake Nona office is more than welcome, where we have prototypes available, and you could see the operation happening in Lake Nona with 8 vehicles along 6 routes. So extended open invitation.
Brandon, thank you very much. I just want to check with Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, who's participating virtually. Mayor Pro Tem, can you hear me? It looks like you're muted right now. You might need to unmute yourself, but I want to make sure you don't have any questions for Brandon. Okay, showing she's muted. I will assume that's no, but if we get any messages, please let me know. Thank you again for your time and the whole Beep team. Thank you.
Council.
I would just like to say that when Todd and I visited Beep and we had the pleasure of driving in one, it did actually stop an accident. There was a Jeep, not a Beep, that cut us off and the vehicle stopped before we hit it. So thanks, beep. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna kill my city manager on this field trip. But the beep actually did its thing and stopped. So.
I'm glad you did not weep. That's good.
Mayor, may I speak now?
Please,
Hello,
yes.
Mayor. Sorry about that. I just wanted to say that I heard this complete presentation. It was about an hour or 2 hours at Transportation Policy and Intergovernmental Affairs at Florida League of Cities last year. So I'm fully aware of it, and congratulations to Beep. And thank you for the presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, council, if we're ready to move on to the annual audited financial statements and independent auditors report for the fiscal year ending in September 30th, 2022. I have a presentation by Michael Masano with James Moore and Company. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. The floor is yours.
I believe we had some slides. There we go. So yes, I am Mike Masano. I'm the manager of the audit of the city. Zach Shalfor, the partner, unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, so I'll be handling the presentation. I did want to start by thanking John DeLeo and his team. The audit process can sometimes be grueling with all of our requests and questions, and his team is always very responsive and gets us everything we need timely, which makes the whole process go smoothly. So thanks, John, and your team for the hard work. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this first slide is their certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. The city did receive the certificate for fiscal year 21. And basically the city achieves this by providing all the necessary information within their ACFR and also complying with all the needed requirements. We fully expect the city to achieve this certificate again in fiscal year 22. So next slide. So basically the presentation is just going to cover some of the high level areas within the ACFR, some of the more key highlights that we wanted to bring to everyone's attention. Starting with this slide, so you can kind of see here with the bullets, the 5 key parts of the ACFR that kind of describe our different opinions and things. The first one on pages 20 to 22 of the ACFR is our opinion. The city did receive an unmodified opinion, which is the best possible opinion that we can issue. Essentially that there's no issues or findings within the audit report itself. The next report is a single audit report on compliance, specifically related to federal and state single audit. We had no findings within this report. Essentially, we're just doing our testing over the federal and state monies the city receives. Moving on to the internal control and compliance report on pages 112 and 113 of the ACFR. Again, no findings or comments here. Everything was good from an internal control standpoint, which is always good to see. Pages 114 to 116, the Auditor General report, no modifications or issues amongst that report. And then finally, the Independent Accountants Examination report on page 117 showed that the city was in compliance with all state statutes. So across the board, everything clean, no issues or findings, which is always really nice to see. So. The next slide is describing the general fund balance and the 5 separate categories of fund balance. So you can see described amongst the last 3 years, non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned fund balance. You'll see that non-spendable fund balance did decrease a little bit from the prior year, and that was related to a prior year advance to the capital construction fund that was cleared out in 2022. And committed fund balance did increase quite significantly from the prior year. And that was related to the ARPA funds received in fiscal year 22. Everything else pretty comparable. And this kind of leads into the next slide, which is related to the GFOA recommendation of a minimum of 2 months of recurring expenditures and transfers out in assigned and unassigned fund balance. So you can see, as pulled from the previous slide, total assigned and unassigned fund balance totaled approximately 5.9 million in fiscal year 22. Current year expenditures and recurring transfers out was about 14.1 million, which put the city at a 41.7% percentage of assigned, unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures and transfers out. The GFOA, the GFOA recommends, just go back to the previous slide. Oh, there you go. The GFOA recommends approximately 16.7%, which is a minimum of 2 months of recurring expenditures and transfers out. So you can see the city is well above that minimum. And that is the minimum. The city can operate basically at any level above that 16.7%. So the city is well above it, which is, good to see. And you can also see that the city's essentially comparable to the prior year, about 43% in the prior year for that metric. So to the next slide. So the next slide is describing the CRA fund. You can see that the city did have a deficit in CRA fund balance, which is just due to the city making constant investments with these monies. And below that, you can see that the revenue increased over the last 3 years pretty significantly. So about 1.9 million in CRA revenues in 2022, which is up from 2021 and 2020. So some steady growth there, which is really nice to see. Expenditures related to CRA, approximately 4.8 million in operating and capital outlay, and 820,000 in transfers out for debt service payments. And then along with the CRA fund, we actually issue a separate audit opinion. We noted no findings or issues with the CRA fund. And then along with that, we issue a separate examination report on compliance with specified CRA statutes and noted the city was in compliance with all CRA statutes. So really good to see there as well. Moving on to some other highlights. So related to proprietary funds, you can see here the table describes proprietary unrestricted net position for wastewater and stormwater for the last 3 years. So about 556,000 in wastewater unrestricted net position in 2022 and approximately 1.8 million in stormwater unrestricted net position in fiscal year 2022. And then also below you can see the debt description. So 1.8 million in SRF loan drawdowns in 2022, which is spread amongst 8 separate loans, and about $480,000 in total debt repayments during fiscal year 22. And then if we go to the next slide. So like I said, it's pretty high level. Just trying to point out the key areas of the ACFR. In summary, I would say, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, everything clean and good from our standpoint. No issues or recommendations on that front. We believe the city's in a pretty healthy financial position. So does anybody have any questions on any of the information presented?
Michael, thank you very much. Council, any questions? Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, any questions for the auditors?
No, thank you. They did a very nice job. Congratulations and thank you very much. We hope to continue our relationship with you in the future.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and the entire James Moore team. We appreciate it and congrats.
Thanks. I would just like to thank Michael. James Moore gives us tremendous support, and if you've got a question, they could be on the road or whatever on the highway, and they'll call you back in 5 minutes if they can't get to their phone. And they make us better, they make us smarter. And this audit here, council needs to realize, which I know you do, this is a reflection of Jenny, Cheryl, and Donna really having to take in so much information internally and externally, and then making it sure it gets in there right. Because if it doesn't get in there right, then what they receive isn't right. So it's just a credit to the finance staff, and they're always dedicated to doing things right. And with financial reporting getting more difficult and being asked to convey things in so many different manners, it's important that we do the things we have to do, and we're proving it through our accuracy, compliance, and our adaptability to adjust. So thanks, Michael. Thanks, Zach. You guys are the best. Your support's amazing, and we thank you for always being there for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you. Safe travels. All right, council. Currently at 6:28 p.m. as we wrap up the final presentation interviews, which is an interview with Mr. Jason Steele for consideration as the City of Cape Canaveral's legislative representative. With Jason, Mr. Steele is here tonight. Hello. City manager, as far as the interview or anything procedurally, is there anything our city attorney needs to do?
No.
Okay, similar to the board, not like, okay, awesome. Anything you want to comment?
No, I just want
before
to
we begin?
point out that the Mr. Steele's resume is in the agenda here. I've known Mr. Steele for nearly 20 years, and this is an interview, and later on in this agenda is an opportunity to approve an agreement if council so chooses with Mr. Steele.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Steele, thank you. Good
It's a
evening.
great pleasure to be here in Cape Canaveral tonight. I am excited to potentially be a lobbyist for this great city. I have lived in Brevard County for 50 years. I'm a former state representative. My brother Val Steele was a county commissioner here for 14 years. I've served in multiple capacities across the state under almost every governor since Claude Kirk. As a matter of fact, when I was 22 years old, I traveled the state with the governor as his aide and got bit by the bug. And actually, I'm going to take responsibility for getting your mayor, Wes Morrison, bit by that same bug. So we've talked in the past quite a bit about how Wes wanted to get involved in politics, and congratulations, Wes, for being mayor.
Thank you.
There is many, many things that you need to be concerned about right now. And I can tell you, every time I go to Tallahassee, I cringe because you never know what's going to be coming out of their mouths. And for some reason or another, they seem to forget how they get elected. They get elected through the good people in cities, the good elected officials in cities and counties, and for some reason or another, they get amnesia when they're in Tallahassee. They are putting forward a bill this year that's a sovereign immunity bill that is absolutely the most ludicrous bill I've ever heard in my entire life, increasing the cap from $200,000 to $2.5 million in the event that you get sued. That is just the beginning of the things that they're doing in Tallahassee. And I don't know if you've known in the past, but I have been a major, major adversarial pain in the neck to the vacation rental people over the years. And the vacation rental people need to be controlled by cities. You need to have that right to be able to put them wherever you'd like to be able to put them. But for some reason in Tallahassee, they think that they can just go ahead and control where you want to have your zoning. It has been just overwhelming to me, specifically being a home rule guy, that these things have been going on. I have very, very good connections with all of the elected officials here. I traveled the country on a federal basis with Senator Marco Rubio when he ran for president. I was appointed by Senator Scott to the Enterprise Florida Board, the Space Florida Board. I was appointed by Governor Martinez to be the head of the director of the Division of Real Estate. I spent 8 years on the Florida Real Estate Commission. And I serve in many capacities on boards of directors around Brevard County. I love it here. I love it. I eat, live, and breathe Brevard County. So I would be anxious to be involved with the city of Cape Canaveral. I have, each and every one of you will have my cell phone numbers. And I will tell you one thing, I respond very quickly. My wife sometimes say, you respond too quickly. I said, no. When an elected official or someone from the city calls and they need help, and they need it right now. And one of the things I do ask when I represent a city is that probably a good month before, 6 weeks before the legislative session start, that we all get together and we decide what we're going to ask for from appropriation standpoint from some of these things. Todd and I talked about this, and the mayor and I talked about this on some of the issues that are important. Obviously, Indian River Lagoon things, anything to do with environment, anything to do with engineering or getting water runoff out of the Indian River Lagoon, are things that will be looked at very favorably most of the time, unless there's some sort of issue that would make them not conducive to the public way. So I thought I would open up, if you don't mind, and ask if anybody had any questions in regards to what I would be doing and how I would be doing that. Of course, I would report to the city manager. I would report to the city council, and I'm going to tell you right now, I do not get involved in the political side of the issues. I could not do that as a lobbyist. That's not right. It's not ethical in my position. So you're not going to be seeing me get out here and say, oh, you should do this or you should do that. I'm going to do what I'm told to do by the city council and by the city manager. So even if I didn't like it, I'm still going to do it. I'm going to do it with the best amount of energy that I have, and I'm going to do it to make sure that we win. Lots of stuff going on. I'll spend the next 60 days pretty much 25 to 30 days in Tallahassee, and I look forward to being able to work with you in any way I can.
Thank you very much. Council, this is an interview for legislative representation. Mr. Steele, thank you for those opening remarks. That's very helpful. It was one of my questions, essentially why you wanted to do this. We certainly had an opportunity to speak. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you on some of the qualities that you said as far as being responsive. I'd like to share with the council that shortly after the hurricane, Mr. Steele reached out to me and he had, I think at the time, was working with the city of Satellite Beach, as we saw in his resume, and just wanted to know how he could help, and started guiding and matching up resources and showing options. And this is before anything. And so responsiveness is important. We just heard from our finance director about the rules that we have to comply by. And so when we have representation in Tallahassee, which at this moment we do not, we are thankful for you being willing to serve and represent us. So council, those are my remarks. If there's anything, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Steele, thank you very much for your willingness. I'm excited and encouraged that we can have interaction with you. And I look forward to conversations that we'll have in the future over ways that you can help us with home rule and many other things that we're facing. So I appreciate that.
It would be my pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Davis, Kellum, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Steele. And I agree. It's exciting to have somebody up there speaking for us, and especially with home rule, that's important in this little city. You know, we're losing a lot of things that we are no longer able to do because we're preempted all the time. So it will be great to have that voice in Tallahassee for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Davis, I'm going to see what's going on.
I want to speak. Hello,
We
I
hear
would
you
like
loud
to
and
speak.
clear. Hi, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
welcome.
All right, I just wasn't sure. I have a few questions. I was just wondering, I understand that Mr. Steele lives part-time in Europe, so I was just curious about what kind of a time commitment can you give us?
I live part-time in Europe. We have a business in Europe. My wife and I import French wines, which is quite interesting since I'm a recovering alcoholic. So anyway, I spend whatever time necessary here. You know, this is a global internet and things of that nature. So I've never had a problem with being able to be in touch with anybody when I'm in France or in Portugal or wherever I am. But I will do what I need to do.
My next question is, where is your office in Tallahassee? Do you have an office there? And I'll be coming there for the legislative day, so I would like to visit you.
I will be in Tallahassee on the 6th and 7th. We've closed the Thomasville office in Tallahassee. Our office is in Melbourne now. And we closed the Tallahassee office because of all of the situation with COVID. And it just got to be a problem up there. So we lost some attorneys and some interesting things happened at that time. So we have 4 attorneys in Tallahassee that work Tallahassee for us. So they do it all from their homes.
All right. The third thing is, I like what you had to say about the sovereign immunity bill. I've been following that along with Space Coast League of Cities and the advocacy team. And I was just wondering, if we hired you for the first year, would you consider giving us a discount?
Discount on
for
what?
your fee? Your fee.
I will consider doing whatever. If the city wants to offer me something different than what I'd be paid next year, I would consider it. I have already discounted my fee on a representation basis. I normally charge $2,500 a month, and because of my relationship with the mayor and the city manager, I agreed to do this for $1,500 a month.
Thank you very
I
much.
like your negotiation
I think that's a big deal, Mr. Steele. And we
Pardon me?
always have to be concerned with our budget.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. And I understand that. One of the good things is that your city attorney and your city manager and your mayor all got together when we pounded out this letter of intent, a letter of agreement to make sure that I cannot do anything. I can't travel. I can't do anything of that nature. All of the costs that I have to incur is incurred from $1,500 a month, most likely, unless there is something specific that is relevant to the city that would have to be approved. So Anthony did a great job on making sure those things are there. I'm fine with that.
Thank you. I'm fine with that too. I just wanted to check on it just to be 100% sure. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So you'll be in Tallahassee on the 6th and the 7th of March.
Correct.
If we end up,
I will too.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be handing my cards to the mayor right here so he can pass them out to the city council people and make sure that you get one. So my cell phone is on there. So don't hesitate to call me.
thank you.
I
That
won't.
prep
Thank
meeting,
you.
the idea about your recommendation for us to get together prior as a council so that we can talk or whatever format we do. I think that's might not be before the 6th and the 7th, but whenever we have the opportunity to do that, I think that's an
You're a little
excellent
late.
idea.
Unfortunately, we're a little late with the
Mhm.
House. The appropriations for the House needed to be put in a week ago Monday. Now, with the Senate is still open for any appropriation type things. And there could be a possibility that we could get some appropriations approved in the event that they were emergency type things or would directly relate to the biggest issues that we have, which is the Indian River Lagoon and runoff and things of that nature. So those are things that are more than likely to pass.
Thank you. Council, any more questions for Mr.
No,
Steele?
mine were answered. I just, legislative days, I think are March 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So I don't think we will be up there the 6th and 7th. If I'm
Is
not
it,
mistaken.
it's April?
Yeah. But
Okay,
we won't-
and you'll be there in March?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be there a variety of different times. I'm not
Mhm.
quite sure when they'll be, but I'll be following the League of Cities. First of all, we belong to Lobby Tool, which is a very handy, wonderful device that basically gives us information on when these committee hearings are going to be made and things of that nature. So pretty much if there's a committee hearing that's going on that is zeroing in on one of the issues that we have, like sovereign immunity, I'm going to be there.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'm sure we can get our collective thoughts over to the city team and we'll work with you. Thank you very much for the interview. I think we'll formally make a decision on the agreement, the regular item once we get to it. So
May I approach the bench?
please,
Your Honor.
yes. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to be moving into the public participation portion of the meeting. Let me just check something. This was the comment card that you had just brought up, understood. I did not connect that. Typically, the interview is conducted by the council. And so I don't think that. You'll be able to speak before we vote on anything, if that's okay. I think if the council wants to hear a question, that's fine. I think you want to ask a question formally. I think that he'll still be here. So I have no problem if the council's okay. Once we get to public participation, if he wants to come up and answer that. Is that okay? Thank you all. Okay, that concludes the interview and the presentation interview portion of the meeting. And we now move on to the public participation portion. We do have folks who are listening in virtually. If you are, please raise your hand virtually, which I will see there, and I'll recognize you after we take care of the public comments that are here present today. And so with that, I do have one card. Don't go too far, Dr. Roberts. You are the only card I actually have. So without any delay, please.
Well, thank you, Jason. I appreciated your overview and certainly your advocacy for home rule. That is so important. And also, I'm just going to ask you, because as you pointed out in representing our interests, I know that some of your activities have been partisan, and I was just going to ask if you plan to be reaching across the aisle as it relates to the work up there. I know you said you're not going to be political, which is very appreciated. You're going to be dealing with just the issues themselves. So I just was looking for that reassurance that you'll be working across the aisle as it relates to any issues. Nonpartisan.
If we could, just a matter so Mayor Pro Tem can hear, if you ask all of your questions and then allow Mr. Steele to come up and use the microphone and hear, that way the folks listening can hear. So is that the only question, or did you?
One more, and then I'll come back to my other card question. But one of the things that's important is particularly to beachside communities, because with Senate Bill 4, which after the Surfside collapse, is asking of condominiums, particularly those that are in 3 miles of the coast. There are many concerns that the condo communities have, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention as it relates to the Space Coast Communities Association, which you're probably very familiar with as a realtor person as well. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention as something they were concerned about with the provisions there. The legislature is trying to advocate for some their perception, but a lot of them don't live on the beach side. So I know you're being representative of Indian Harbor, I think, in Satellite Beach and us. Well, I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that we would really appreciate your listening to the concerns of the condominium owners as it relates to some of the state legislature that's being considered.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Mr. Steele, if you want to come forward, I think that'd be helpful for those who are listening. The first question was on, being willingness to not make it partisan, reach across the aisle. I believe you said you'll do whatever it takes. And then the second was making you aware of the Senate bill number 4 with the condos. Please.
First of all, the first question was, am I going to be partisan in Tallahassee? And the only thing I'm going to be partisan to is the city of Cape Canaveral. So whatever it takes to pass this legislation that we need to get passed here, I'm going to do it. Now, the question that is Dr. Roberts, correct? The question Dr. Roberts had was in regards to homeowner associations and, what's going to happen with homeowner associations. And once again, I will not be doing a thing on any of those things unless the city manager and this city council tells me, go do this. So I'm not going to just go off as a loose cannon and start doing things up in Tallahassee unless I'm directed by the city council. So am I concerned about it? Absolutely, I'm concerned about it. But unless the city manager and the city council tells me to go support a bill or go do something in regards to it, I'm not going to do that. There's plenty that's going to be on the plate up there in Tallahassee this next session. So adding more is going to be okay with me, but I'm not going to do it unless I'm directed to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Dr. Roberts, my comment on Senate Bill number 4, if there's anything that we can learn as a council about that and help, please let us know. And I think that's the process to get it back to Mr. Steele. So you do, yes. So if you want to go ahead, this is for item. Sure. Yes, I have your card here. Please.
One was about Senate Bill 4, and there are some provisions that the legislature is considering now that are not necessarily condominium, beachside condominium friendly, or maybe cost effective, or in depth and understanding. So that's the reason I just wanted to mention that to the council of the city. I think we have we've had 2 meetings of the Space Coast Community Association, of which many of our condos are participants in that. But I just wanted to bring it to council's attention. We'll try to bring more information to the council and staff as it relates to the concerns of the condos. And along those lines, and these are beachside condos in the city. And along that line, I just wanted to thank Zach for his oversight of the dunes management concerns that some of the condominium associations are having. We're starting to work a little bit more jointly along the beachside. And I just wanted to acknowledge Zach's leadership there, and also to thank the city for the Sea Oaks initiative. And also to just mention that it's interesting, each condo association has different ways of managing the dunes, you know, when they trim them, you know, what plants are trimmed and so forth. So I just want to mention this kind of an informal way in which we're talking among ourselves now that may be a little bit more sophisticated and coordinated in the future. But I did want to bring that to the city, to the council's attention.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your commitment to this city. You truly do love Cape Canaveral, Dr. Roberts. Thank you for all your service here and your continued engagement. Council, anything else? Excellent. That's all the cards I see. If you turned in a card, and you please just raise your hand and make sure you're heard. Seeing none here, I'm going to go. Okay. Oh, I did. That's right. Mr. Scott Watson. Hey, Scott, please come forward. Thank you. And while he's coming up, I see no hands raised online. Hey, Scott.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about pickleball again. Well, for the first time this year. I have a couple of concerns, and I would like to talk about it a little bit. Does the city of Cape Canaveral need money? Because I have offered to paint lines, buy balls, whatever it takes to expand pickleball in Cape Canaveral over the time. And I've heard from Gustavo when he was running it, he said, no, city has plenty of money. And then I had the discussion again with Marcy and John, and I said, you know, do we need money? Well, we know we have plenty of money, and I don't know whether that's true or not. I know we need $32,000 of repairs on the racquetball thing, and I don't know where that money's coming. I don't know. If it's true, then I'll just say, okay, well, that's not important. The other thing is, I'd like to talk about our demographics. Last week on Monday, there were all 5 courts were reserved, and 8 tennis players showed up to use them. They used 2 courts, and the other 3 or 6 courts for pickleball, we weren't allowed to use them from 8:30 till 8 till 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm going for 8 people. It just didn't make any sense. And then Thursday, 11 or 12 tennis players took all 5 courts. And I'm just saying, there's 50 to 75 seniors that want to go down there every morning, and they want to hang out, they want to have fun, they want to play. And all I'm asking for, or what I'm looking to do, is can we please have some priority now? Because if you're going to have 8 people and you made $16, you had 50 seniors down there and you made $100. I mean, I think you said last at that one meeting that pickleball is doing 64% of the income at the rec center. That number could easily be at 80% if we could just expand it, if we could just make it better and have some priority. I don't want tennis to go away. I know they need to play, but can they start at 11, or can they, you know, when they want it and they have some kind of thing going on, can somebody play at 8, somebody play at 9, somebody play at 10, somebody play at 11, you know, stack them over here instead of taking all 5 courts for 12 people. Those are the kind of things you know, I'd like to see happen. How much time do I have in there?
When it goes yellow, you all have 30 seconds left.
All right. There was one more thing. There was a tournament last week that raised $3,000 to $4,000, one pickleball tournament. And I think if we could do more of that, it might be better for us. Thank you all.
Thank you, Scott. City
I'd
manager,
like to,
refresh me when our strategic planning meeting is. Is it March?
March 29th, Wednesday.
Okay. I think pickleball is going to be a part of that, or in near future, a conversation as we talk about those spaces. So thank you for your comments. And it's an exciting sport. And I think that we're feeling the pressure to try and take advantage of it and discuss funding opportunities, creative funding. If the private sector is interested in contributing and helping, I think that's something the council can consider and look at. Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, I believe you wanted to say something?
Yes, I do. I just want to clear the air on this. The Space Coast Tennis League has a tennis league that we play competitively from Aqua Arena all the way up into Titusville. The senior team plays on Monday mornings at 8:30, but only we have asked for 1 or 2 days a month. The reason why we had 8 players is that the one team that came from Kiwi Tennis Club forfeited. We usually play on the 3 courts. And it was requested by some of the other teams in the league that we have the 1 or 2 days of just the tennis. Then on the Thursday team that plays out of Cape Canaveral, they play on Thursdays, only 1 or 2 days a month. And I believe they also start at 8:30. And we are finished by 11 o'clock. So the 1:30 time is erroneous. The rest of the time, when we have open pickleball and we have free pickleball on holidays and also on the weekends. And there's no reason why tennis cannot have this tennis courts to play in peace with other teams when we're playing competitively 1 or 2 days a month. That's all we've asked for. Both of the 2 tennis teams that play in the morning, the women's leagues. And I think that's very fair. The rest of the time, people can play pickleball morning, noon, and night if they choose. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, any comments? Okay, excellent. At that time, I see no more cards up here and no hands raised. We'll go ahead and close the public participation portion of the meeting. We're now going to move on to the consent agenda item. Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, earlier in the discussion, I believe you said that you wanted to remove item number 4, Council. Are there any other items that you'd like to remove? Just to confirm, Mayor Pro Tem, it is item number 4 you'd like to pull?
That's correct.
Great, thank you very much. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I want to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Councilmember Willis, a second by Councilmember Kellum to approve items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Any more discussion, Council? City Clerk?
Councilmember Davis? Councilmember Kellum?
4.
Mayor Morrison?
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Raymond?
4.
Councilmember Willis?
4.
Items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 pass 5-0. Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, item number 4.
I just wanted to say that I really could not hear the entire golf cart discussion. I heard most of it. And I'm concerned that once we take the genie out of the lamp, we will have some problems. I think that people definitely will not respect the rules of the road and they will cross wherever they choose to cross. I don't believe that they will. I think now we also have an enforcement problem because I have a problem at Center, Buchanan, and A1A where I try to cross with my bike almost on a daily basis and people go right through the red light. And time after time after time, I do not see any enforcement for that. All right, now it could be just when I'm crossing the street. However, there have been times when I saw people go through that red light consistently. Now, what I'm wondering, I think once we get this golf cart thing off, the books, that we will find that once that happens, people will disobey. It's just the nature of the beast. I already see a lot of golf carts at Family Dollar store. So I know they've had to cross A1A. I see golf carts at evening things at our Savior's Church. When we had the fair, I know of people who have crossed A1A in the dark with golf carts. And I understand that everybody thinks that golf carts are going to be fun, but I just have to say, I still worry about the safety and security. And I'm worried about the people with the golf carts. And I see a lot of people with golf carts who don't bother to use any seat belts whatsoever. I've seen small children there. And as I said, I'm concerned. When I vote, I always vote for safety and security first. And my second priority is to vote for what's good for the general public and our residents of Cape Canaveral, not a small percentage of people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I unfortunately was not able to be at the workshop, but I did want to share just a brief feedback on this item. I was just in respect to time, I think that there is some value. I'd sent out an invitation to invite folks to the workshop. I was excited that was happening. I certainly think it was the right call. And I've got a summary here of just the theme of the responses that I got. One big thing was that the majority of them did support it, but strong dependence on enforcement. So they liked a lot of the rules in there, and it came down to if we can enforce it, it basically sounds good, and want to ensure that enforcement is consistent and our public is highly educated. So I think that was the first thing I wanted to share. The second is there was some questions about the discrepancy, and y'all might have worked through this on 30 miles per hour and the 20 miles per hour. And a concern, I think when you look at the map, there's no road in Cape Canaveral that's 30, there are 25 or 20 miles per hour. Those roads were designated. And I think the concern was we'll have 20-mile-an-hour max speed on golf carts going on 30-mile-an-hour roads. But the reality is we'll have 20-mile-an-hour max speed golf carts going on 20 and 25-mile-an-hour roads, I think. And so tried to communicate that. The next one was the west side of A1A. I heard residents talking about, their desire to safely cross, which is certainly understandable. And we should work with FDOT on this during our A1A redevelopment plans. I saw in Kimley Horn Associates, that's something in the future that we will pursue. So that was happy. Obviously that Central Avenue and A1A crossing is an ideal place. If you had to pick one, hopefully we can get more. The Harbor Heights has folks who live back there, I believe, has a speed and issue with kids and carts. And so consistent laws across the city will help with this. Maybe a more targeted educational campaign to neighborhood awareness in Harbor Heights. And so if that's an acute problem, it seemed like I got some Harbor Heights interest in the figure 8 there. And lights and signals must be on at night, but what about daytime signals, brake lights, blinkers, cars? That was a question. And e-bikes dominated the golf cart conversation because they said, great on golf carts, but what about these e-bikes? And for another day, but I just want to share that with the council. And those are my comments, so thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Yes. I think that, safety is a priority, absolutely, with the golf carts. And that's why we pushed for it was suggested that we do a study. I think it's a very comprehensive study. And I think the enabling ordinance that Anthony worked on with the staff covers every bit of safety that we could have. You can't guarantee that people will be safe. Look at how many people get hurt on bikes in the city. So do we ban bikes because somebody's going to get hurt? I think there's golf carts on the streets already. They have a tag from the state. Does that make them more safer because they have a tag from the state? This ordinance and this golf cart enabling thing will bring the revenue to the city. I think it works on all our pillars that we talk about in the strategic planning meeting, and and our vision statement of small town. And it gives a small town feel. It's in our comprehensive plan to look at golf cart use in our city as an alternative fuel. We're working towards alternative fuel vehicles for our fleet in the city. I think, you know, coming to our city and be able, between the beep thing and the golf carts, if you didn't have to buy a car, that would be awesome. And walkable, bikeable golf cart. It works, it helps with the environment. It would, you know, it would bring us together in community events. I know I talked to City Manager Todd about, he was somewhere and saw the golf cart parade during the Christmas time. We also have the trunk or treat that golf carts could be involved in, just to bring the city closer together and a small town thing. I don't think you can ever guarantee safety for everything. Somebody's going to get hurt on something somewhere, somehow. And I think it will help also with the parking issues we have in the city. They take up less space. There's parking designations down at the end of Harbor Heights for motorcycles. 2 golf carts can fit in the motorcycle spaces. So that would help with that. I just think that, you know, everything has been addressed in the ordinance. Our transportation sector in all cities, not only ours, are changing more to electric vehicles. This is a first step. I think other cities like Cocoa Beach just enabled it and didn't do a study and all. I think we have gone above and beyond to make sure it's safe. And I think it's something that adds to the quality of life for people that live here. And it helps with mobility for the older generation of people that live in our city that aren't able to ride a bike or get around, but would want the freedom of being on a golf cart to go to the library and or go to the civic hub or, you know, the recreation center. There's already golf carts on the street, like I said. And if we can enable this, it will get the people that have golf carts off the sidewalks and onto the street and be safe. I think that we paid for the study. They recommended the streets. You know, we always say we paid for the study, let's do what they say. So I'm for this, and I think that education is very important. I think when they register their cart, if they get a map and, you know, an explanation of the rules of the road, and, you know, the revenue comes back to our city instead of to the state. I think it's a good thing, and it's something that people in our city want and would enjoy, and it doesn't cost us millions of dollars like other amenities have. This is something that will basically pay for itself with signs and for the registration fee, and I'm sure the staff will figure out, you know, what we need to charge to cover the bases and get this implemented.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Okay, one of the things I think is going to be the key issue is enforcement. I mean, we can put as many restrictions as we want, but if we don't have the enforcement, we're going to have issues. I think we're going to open up a can of worms. Also, we're looking at, it was said that the people want to go to the port. That was the biggest thing, is to get to the restaurants. Just because we're saying you can't go beyond this point doesn't mean that they're not going to go. So my concern is that we need to talk to the port as well, because all of a sudden, if we're got golf carts all in the port and they're not allowing them, that's going to be an issue, especially there where there's all the cruise people and there's all the trucks and stuff like that. Also, another issue for me is the rentals, because they're not going to understand what's going on. They're not going to understand or obey the law. So I think enforcement is going to be the big thing. Right, you know, I'd like to know how many people responded to your survey and how many were against it versus for it, because everybody that I've spoken to is strictly against it. And then you say all this for the community, they can't pass the west, the west people on the west side can't do any of that. So that's an issue as well. So they can't go to the community events, they can't go to the restaurants and stuff. So that's something else to consider. So my biggest thing is the enforcement of this. And if we can't enforce it, and how much is it going to put on the sheriff's office? How much is it going to put on our staff? How much is it actually going to bring in revenue? And is it worth it? So those are my concerns.
Thank you. Councilmember Willis?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As Councilmember Raymond pointed out, she sees golf carts all over the city already with no seat belts, no lights, no anything. If we go with this, we're at least making the effort to make these safer, requiring them to be safe. Again, we have the Wild Wild West out there now. If people are driving golf carts anywhere they want to go, but we put them where they need to be. Now, we can accept the Kimley Horn recommendations, but we don't have to make it wide open throughout the city. We can restrict it to a certain area, see how that works, see what it involves, what it's going to cost us, actually. And then we either expand it or we restrict it even more. So we don't have to do all of it.
If we restricted it to a certain area, what area would you pick? And how would you?
That's what we would have to direct staff to do, is help figure out where we would want to go to it.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, that's, I'm obviously still getting caught up. I didn't know where everyone was with it, but I hear the concerns. I think that I don't like the fact that residents can't cross, but I don't think that's a reason that you would penalize one side or the other. And I think the east has a vested interest to want to go to the parks to the west. So you have it's not west versus east. I think the whole city wants that access at a minimum at Central. I just can't get my head around the fact that I can cross right there on foot or a bicycle, but suddenly if I'm in a golf cart, it becomes dangerous. So I don't see the safety issue there. The port, I think we've got a good relationship with them. I think the same type of signage posted, I think they have posted signage over there. If not, that would be good. But yeah, this is, I don't want to make a decision if it's not a revenue generator, I really don't like that. It's to me about liberty and freedom and the quality of life for people to be able to have more than one option to get around. Today, they have one choice. We're trying to expand choice. We're trying to improve the quality of life. And enforcement, I have the confidence that we will pursue that. And I do think that safety is actually going to increase. But to take one portion of the city, I think that's more confusing. And now, if I look at a citizen now and say, we approve this map, the only areas we did not approve were private roads because we don't have the authority. And unfortunately, we did not meet the criteria on the state of Florida FDOT's road. And so that was outside of our control. But everything that we had control over, we opened up according to the study. But if the second layer is, well, we could have opened it all up, but we only used another portion. Now that's going to create, I think, some tension and confusion. Why did my neighborhood get it? I would be more in favor of limiting time, not geography. And so saying 90 days, we can repeal this within a meeting or two. But we intentionally put this on the agenda and bring it back and maybe have some quarterly progress reports, monthly if we want. And just like we did with short-term rentals when we went out on that new endeavor, we kept it in front of us. We don't have to guess at this. I think the city of Cocoa Beach is running just fine. I keep up with Mayor Malik there, and he says no issues with the golf carts. The last time I spoke to him, it's not talking to Chief Rosenfeld and their deputies. But my thought is I hope we can do this. There is excitement. Councilmember Davis and this entire council, I will forward every reply. That's just my correspondence with citizens so that I can bring good representation in here. But it really, there were some no's, and I didn't represent that I didn't have no's. I said overall, the majority of the people supported it. And there were some valid concerns in the no's, but it was a no because of this. And I thought, we can certainly overcome some of those. So those are my comments. Overall, I hope we can support it, but if not, I know we've spent a lot of time on this. We can move on, but yes, Councilmember Davis.
You know, the traffic study, so I'd like to make a
That's right.
motion that we do accept the traffic study and that was presented from.
Thank you for that.
I'll second the motion.
Got any more discussion, council? Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, City Attorney, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there's another component to the recommendation from the manager, and that's to direct staff to draft the resolution incorporating the recommendations, which would come back to you
March.
in the March meeting for your consideration.
Yep.
And I think the motion just was to accept the study. I wanted to clarify whether that was your limitation that you're trying to impose, or do you also want the staff to prepare the resolution?
I would like all of the staff to prepare. Thank you.
So approving it as written, that component's in there. We're good with her motion. Okay. Got a motion by Councilmember Davis, got a second by Councilmember Willis. To approve item number 4 is written. City Clerk.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Kellum. Mayor Morrison.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Raymond.
Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, you are muted, so on my side, I don't think I've tried to unmute it, but I think you can unmute. Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, we cannot hear you, so if you could unmute.
Four.
Councilmember Willis.
Heard. 4. Okay, motion passes
And
5-0.
4. Oh, thank you.
All right. This is now, we are on past the consent agenda. We reached the public hearing portion of our meeting. For those of you following along, it's currently 7:16 p.m., which item number 7, which is ordinance 02-2023. Mr. City Attorney.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cape Canaveral, Florida, amending solid waste agreement between the city and Waste Pro Florida, Inc., pursuant to section 2.12 of the city charter to adopt the new residential and commercial rate and extend the term of the franchise until September 30th, 2027, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code, severability, and an effective date. This is second and final reading. It's also a public hearing item. No changes since first reading. As the title indicates, there's 3 components to this. The proposed ordinance extends the franchise with Waste Pro to September 30th, 2027, and then adjusts the residential rate to $15.92 and the commercial rate to $5.95 per cubic yard. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council, any questions for city staff? It's a public hearing item. We will go to the public here in a minute, but just,
I'm good, thank you.
okay. Bit a few minutes. If anyone has questions, please chime in. All righty. This is a public hearing item. City Attorney just read it on the solid waste agreement between the city and Waste Pro. If anyone would like to come forward to speak on this item, please do. And looking online, if you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. I see no hands raised. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and close public hearing. Back to this council. Council, anything? I just have a comment I wanted to make on this, if that's okay. The dumpster provision that we were talking about, make sure I got this right. 20 feet and up. Thank you. 20 cubic yards and up. Waste Pro will handle those in the city.
Currently, and will continue to.
And if anyone else does, it's a violation of the agreement and
There are exceptions. For example, if a contractor owns his own dumpster,
Yes.
he or she can use that dumpster.
Okay. But everything under 20, but there's a process I think we learned about last time for a business to follow to become a provider.
Correct.
Okay. And that was my concern. For me, I wanted to understand what Waste Pro's loss would be to if they lost that 20-foot sector of the business so that we could adjust rates. I understand if the rates need to go up. And the increase, to me, to have choice, I never got a clear answer on that. And that was why I didn't support it last time, is I didn't felt like I have enough information. But with that, I support this. I'm very happy with Waste Pro, especially on the business side that y'all have done. I get lots of compliments. During the hurricanes, we all get complaints, but it's no lack of effort. And so just want to say, I did not support it last time for lack of information. I'm still not 100% clear, but my general sentiment was to never not move forward with this. So tonight, I hope we can. And that was all I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right.
Councilmember Davis.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept ordinance number 02-2023 as written.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Davis, second by Councilmember Willis. Council, any final comments, questions? Good. All right, City Clerk.
Councilmember Davis. 4. Councilmember Kellum.
4.
Mayor Morrison.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Raymond.
4.
Councilmember Willis.
4.
All right, great. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Waste Pro, for all you do. Yes, sir. Okay, let me get oriented here. We are now moving to our final public hearing item, which is ordinance number 03-2023, amending chapter 22. Mr. City Attorney.
Ordinance 03-2023, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cape Canaveral, Florida, amending Chapter 22, Community Development, to modify the duties of the Business and Economic Development Board to include serving in the role of the City of Cape Canaveral Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Board, providing for the purpose and duties of the City of Cape Canaveral Community Redevelopment Advisory Board, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code, severability, and an effective date. This is second and final reading of this ordinance, also a public hearing item. Per the recommendation of the City CRA Board, seeking to have an advisory board established, the City Council, if it adopts this ordinance, would delegate those responsibilities in an ex officio capacity to the Business and Economic Development Board. If the ordinance passes, then that board would serve in the advisory capacity to the Community Redevelopment Agency and make recommendations regarding amendments to the Community Redevelopment Plan and provide any other recommendations that the CRA Agency Board would want the board to provide. Mayor.
Thank you, City Attorney. All right, Council, item number 8, this is public hearing item. Any questions for staff before we go out to public? Okay, seeing none. I don't have any cards on this, but it's a public hearing item. Please come forward if you'd like to speak on the ordinance our City Attorney just read. I'll also look for anyone online. Hands raised. No hands raised. Yes, Dr. Roberts, please.
I just wanted to congratulate the council and the staff for this initiative and fully staffing that board. I just think it's incredibly significant for the city, and the timing couldn't be better with the strategic work that's ahead of us. And I just want to thank you for resurrecting the board to full activity and meaningfulness. I was a member of the board many years ago and doing initial work that I and others are aware of, but it's just so good to see it resurrected and staffed so beautifully and remembered so beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Yes, council's been pro-economic development and we are revitalizing it thanks to all the ones who stepped up and willing to sell those, sit in those advisory capacities and also those and expand their roles and responsibilities with the CRA. And so any other final comments? I don't think so. Seeing none, we'll bring it back, close public hearing, back to council.
I have one question. When do we see the economic board seated? When will they start?
Dave, I expect we'll see something in March with that board. Is that too soon, you think? The first board meeting, Business and Economic Development Board.
Bed board.
Yeah. And there's a few things we've been talking about for that first agenda. One of them would be to update the Economic Development Action Plan that Shannon and the board approved 10 years ago, maybe 11. It needs some dusting off. Also, the CRA board's going to need, this board's going to need some CRA training. So we need to address that as well. And Anthony talked about providing that at the first meeting as well.
Yeah, that's what I've been working on in the last couple of weeks. We've been working on kind of twofold training. One would be CRA training, and that would be from the city attorney. And the other is it's also kind of an economic development function of this board as well. So we've been talking to Doug Thomas, who you're all familiar with, to provide some basic economic development training for the board. So yeah, and that would be really, we'd want to get that done, kind of one of the first items we get done with them, so they kind of hit the ground running and they're equipped and ready to go. So yes,
March
first
maybe
meeting.
Too soon.
I'll have to work with Anthony and see what his schedule provides, but we can certainly shoot for March.
I think that, I mean, just my opinion, I think after the strategic planning meeting would be a good time to start, because then they would have what we're all looking forward to do. They would have that.
It's a good point. That would give us time to get things worked out with Doug Thomas. So we could plan for a mid-April, late April. That's when I'll be back.
Yeah, yeah.
Further, getting them at that strategic planning meeting, obviously, if they can, that would be huge. I mean, out of all the boards would be great, but they're.
Good point. We can send out a special invite to each one of the board members and request that they be there.
Yeah.
Obviously. Good point. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Any other questions? Okay.
I make a motion that we.
Let me just check with Mayor Pro Tem Raymond. Make sure. Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, if you don't mind, if you could unmute and confirm that you haven't been trying to talk or you don't have any questions on this public hearing item? Item number 8.
No, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. I think we talked it out the last time we met. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, City Clerk. Wait, do we have a motion? You're making a motion. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
I make a motion, we accept ordinance 03/2023 on the second reading.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Kellum, second by Councilmember Willis to adopt ordinance number 03/2023. City Clerk.
Councilmember Davis.
4.
Councilmember Kellum.
4.
Mayor Morrison.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Raymond.
4.
Councilmember Willis.
4.
Ordinance number 03/2023 passes 5-0. We now move on to the items for action portion of our meeting. 7:27 p.m. Moving right along. The item number 9, for those of you following along, is to approve the proposal from Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc. in the amount of $98,600 to prepare the Civic Hub Master Plan and authorize city manager to execute the same. City manager, you want to?
Thank you, Mayor. The Civic Hub Master Plan essentially creates a plan of the desired amenities on the surface of the properties, which would then inform the size and scope of the desired stormwater storage system underneath the properties. So with these civic-owned properties, the city properties around this block here, this city campus, we have to know what we want to put on top of it before we can know where the stormwater vault systems would go underneath it. So this proposal is to determine how we want to program that space. Do we want to get rid of shuffleboard courts, for example, closing down Taylor Avenue? We can talk about the racquetball court and tennis courts and all. Are we getting our best bang for our buck on how we currently program this space? This is our opportunity to dream and redesign this. We won't get a chance to do this in our lifetimes. We want to get this right. So Kimley Horn is going to be engaging with the public in a few workshops to determine what are those needs. We're going to be sending out a survey to the community. What can you imagine this space looking like when it's all done? So this proposal from Kimley Horn is $98,600. This has come from 2+ years of strategic planning retreats. And the 2021, I just wanted to clarify because there was some confusion before about this, about why did it grow from just this piece of property to now this big civic hub. In 2021 at the strategic planning retreat, there was a proposal at the time. It was called the Promenade, and it was the purchase of the building next door here. It was ranked as an intermediate priority by the council, and that purchase was completed in early 2022. In the 2022 strategic planning retreat, staff reframed the acquisition of the property into a longer term but larger civic hub project. That was always the how we envisioned this happening. So we wanted to gauge council's appetite for the civic hub. The city council ranked it as a long-term priority. So we're advancing that ball slowly. We've got the property. Now we're going to master plan it. And we've got next 2 years of CIPs. The first year would be the first phase. Perhaps, we could, it'd be nice if we could finish the stormwater element underneath it. And then once that's done, we could do the elements above that. So in all told, we're in the 5-year range anyways before this could be done, which is that intermediate to long-term range. But the most important thing is this is an amenity for the public, the residents of Cape Canaveral, how you want to use this space. We want to hear from you. That's what's going to inform this plan, Mayor.
Thank you. So the goal here is to approve the proposal and allow you to execute, and so that you can move forward. Okay, thank you. I do have some comments, but council?
Yes, a couple comments, questions. So this 98.6 is coming out of the rest of the money that was left from the $1.2 million, right? Okay. And what is the, how long is this going to take, and when are we going to have the design and then more public input?
The design will be evolving as we gain the public input. Okay. And then they're going to be bringing 2 concept plans to city council to choose from that hit on all these things.
Okay. That's all I have right now.
Okay. My comment is it's just under $100,000 to do the study, but when they come back with proposals, those will be more than likely multi-million-dollar projects.
They'll give us an estimate of costs for construction, but they won't be doing that work. They don't do the construction work. They're just doing the master planning. Oh, you're talking about the master design.
Yeah, so after the design, whatever they design, that, we would have to make a decision on those projects and then move through the process of engineering, design, and constructing them and funding them.
And the RFQ for that design.
And so I want to see this property improved 100%. I'm not convinced still that it's a stormwater. Wherever we can get stormwater, let's do it. I certainly understand the logic and the order of knowing what happens above grade determines how the exfiltration system works. But I just think there's got to be an exfiltration system that could work. So you don't have to spend $98,000 to see maybe a $2 or $3 million project that we don't really think is a priority right now. My concern is all the trees in the H, as we call it. Could we actually go to, just so the folks are paying along, the aerial image, really any aerial image of the Civic Hub property? It has the dotted lines outlined. I think it's attachment 1. I think it's below that. Yep. And thank you very much.
Yeah, it is a funky letter H shape, but that was done on purpose. I mean, part of the upper half of the H excludes the dog park and Xeriscape Park because there's so many trees there. And then the lower half is the tennis courts, the Nancy Hansen recreational facility, which we didn't initially envision being reprogrammed, that space.
It's above that.
But that shows it, Clark. That's enough.
Well, yeah, I was trying to show the trees. I can't really see, but, well, I just turned around on that because the orientation, that's south facing, that's north. Okay, so the trees down in, where the racquetball courts are, right along A1A, the south western portion of the area. Are we thinking we're going to get stormwater there?
Potentially, yeah, potentially all of the yellow area in this particular diagram could be considered for stormwater vaults.
I don't see how with all those trees there.
We would have to try to work around preserving as many trees as possible, but that doesn't mean we won't be faced with the decision. What's more important? If we could gain so many X more gallons, if we were willing to give up a tree and plant another one here, the council might be faced with that decision. That's possible.
So the density of those trees, I don't think we're in that situation for this section of the parcel, because they are tree-lined streets. That's one of the most beautiful vision accomplishing sections of the city, is those tree-lined streets going right down there next to that. And then it wraps around. That whole parcel to me is an above grade project, which that makes up, or that portion of the area is nothing below grade is going to be worth it. The promenade, the northwestern portion is an excellent place to do stormwater because there's little to no trees. And in my opinion, under the tennis courts and racquetball courts, if we were redeveloping those, is another excellent place. But when you go around the other parts of the property, it's tree-lined streets. And so maybe you can get it in some of these parking lots, but when you subtract out, we're not left with the promenade is the most opportunistic spot, what we were calling next to City Hall there, the property we just acquired. That's great. I think that's a good project. And we don't need to spend $98,000 to determine, that is a good place for stormwater. I just have a hard time. This was a promenade project. It's expanded to now a stormwater project. And I view it as we can add in stormwater components, but this is an above grade project. We're talking about redeveloping the land. And that's what Kimley Horn's going to tackle, is they're going to take on community surveys. What do you want to do here? They're not going to ask them if they want stormwater. I think we all want stormwater, but the scope of the project, this is a recreation. I would say 30% of the property is, to me, looks to be accessible for stormwater, where the others, maybe under those concrete pads, it works. But again, the drip line, the root systems of those mature oaks, you come in there with a truck, those roots stretch, I guarantee you, all the way across underneath those. And so it's just not worth it to me to touch that preserved green space. That's one of the more beautiful places in the city.
And Mayor, and I'm sorry.
That's what I'm wrestling with. No,
I don't disagree with that at all, of course, but this is a preliminary sketch of how the yellow and the gray areas could be used, but it's really the whole square. We're looking at that whole square as the opportunity area. How it might be programmed is what the yellow and gray mean. That's not set in stone at all. For example, as you said, we might look at repurposing or re-envisioning, rebuilding, developing the tennis courts. There's a lot of ground that those tennis courts cover, and they could potentially also be stormwater underneath that. Just, it doesn't mean that staff or Kimley Horn is opposed to it. It's just we hadn't envisioned that in this preliminary draft. I think pay less attention to the H and pay more attention to the square. And then we'll be sensitive to all of those needs.
So and my final comment is that spending 98,000 is the amount of money to figure out what we can do to then, but we really don't, we have options. We know what opportunities we can do with that property. I think that's great, but it doesn't mean we're actually going to do them. And so to me, we should be studying something that we are willing to fund and pursue. And maybe we are willing to fund a whole nother redevelopment of this property above ground. I think we've heard some issues with pickleball and tennis, but my issue is I support all of this. We're going into strategic planning, and one of the big things that I always walk away with strategic planning is the priorities and to know what's high, what's low. If this ranks high on the priorities, I would do it, but I don't like approving $100,000 today when we're a few weeks away from our strategic planning meeting. I'd like to come out of that meeting and say, here's this project. How does it fit in? It's 100,000 today, plus workshops and all of that. And then we're gonna, plan for a multi-million-dollar upgrade or whatever. I would like to come out of that meeting and if we were to go down all the departments from infrastructure maintenance, police, fire, and we were to say, here are all the priorities, I don't know if we would have enough money left over to justify a multi-million-dollar project. And the remaining 100,000 that was left over in a surplus, that can be held or used. I'm not saying use the funds for something else. I'm just saying March would be a good time to vote this through after we walk out of the strategic planning meeting. Those are my final comments. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any objection to bringing this along to the strategic planning retreat, but there's possibilities here, and nobody's really talking about cutting down all the trees. I mean, that's a major thing there.
Sure.
But we've got to maximize every opportunity. Even the Mead and Hunt study recommends that we find storage wherever we can find it. And there's also the possibility we could add 72 parking spaces here with 6 pickleball courts over top of it. I mean, it's been done here in Cape Canaveral already. And we could easily add that. Now, it's going to inconvenience a few people for a while with tennis courts or pickleball courts or whatever, but we could do it. I mean, we had, in the last workshop, we had concerns about not having enough parking. And it's always a problem at Cape Canaveral. We had concerns about not enough pickleball. We had concerns about tennis courts, a clay tennis court. Well, we could explore the idea of putting the clay tennis courts over at the rec center. I mean, it would be over top of the exfiltration vaults, but that could be engineered. So I think, we could discuss it. We could see different options, but I think we have to maximize everything we can. And, again, anything we do is going to inconvenience someone for a small period. And we have to find this stormwater storage wherever we can, because when we start with the Mead and Hunt work, it's going to have to be coordinated, with the exception of the pump. All the rest of it's got to be coordinated with the Presidential Streets Master Plan, because we can't pay to dig the same hole twice. So this is outside of the pump and the backflow tidal valve. Yeah, excuse me. This is the only opportunity we have right now. And I think that the flooding along the presidential streets, that has to take precedence over a lot of things to remedy that as soon as we can. Because when we do start tearing up the presidential streets to do those changes, we're going to have more flooding problems, because you're going to have these pipes dug up and we're going to have torrential rains. I mean, it's where we live. This is what happens. So we have to do everything we can when we can So to me, I'm in favor of the study just so that we can know what the citizens want and then maximize the opportunity.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
You said exactly comments that I was going to say, but I wanted to ask you when you were talking about parking and like pickleball, are you talking 2 layers or like pickleball and then tennis on top? So you'd have like parking, tennis, or?
No, well, I can show you an example of, there's, I think it's on Polk and
Yeah, where they-
Ridgewood near you.
Yeah, where they have parking.
They have 2 tennis courts and a basketball court above parking. We could easily, if you look at the square here, we could easily to the right, lower right portion of that square in this area, put that parking with pickleball courts above it. I mean, that's, I'm not an engineer. I'm just.
No, I think it's an excellent, that's what I was clarifying. If you would.
Well, you would put,
pickleball
you
and
would put
tennis
the
or
pickleball,
just-
you would put pickleball above it because they don't need the high fencing that tennis would. And it would be less obtrusive.
I think it's an excellent idea. Thank you.
So it's just an idea.
Still think it's good.
Thank you.
With the study, I think we need to find out. And as you said, with the flooding, we need to move forward.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Raymond. Looks like you're muted. Mayor Pro Tem, still can't hear you yet. If you have any comments on the item number 9, we'll hold right there. If you come in, Councilmember Kellum, do you have any comments? If Mayor Pro Tem comes in, I just maybe courteously yield to her if you don't mind.
I think that Councilman Willis's idea of the parking with the tennis or pickleball on top would be a good idea for that space. I just hate to see us lose those trees, and that we talked about the mural, and we talked about at the last workshop repurposing that area. And again, I don't know if Zach is the smart guy here. He could figure out, I mean, with the water retention underneath and the trees on top, does the trees do better? Or, I'm just, and I think I would like to wait for this strategic planning. We always seem to be one step ahead of ourselves, but if this 98,000 gets the ball going on the ideas there. But anyways, Zach, that's my thing. If we take out all those trees or many of them to do something there to put water underneath of it, retain water, how does that work? Because trees do a lot for water retention as well, right?
Yes, a mature oak tree sucks up a lot of water. It is one of the best stormwater management features out there that nature can provide. That being said, I don't think it's possible to put bolts underneath mature oak trees. That's probably just not going to work. But that also being said, there's a lot of space here that doesn't have trees on it. And I think there could be a balance struck where you maximize the amount of space that doesn't have canopy to the space that does. And stormwater vaults are very mature technology for stormwater infrastructure. And there are very clever, innovative features that can be done with them that can maximize their depth in order to suck up the most amount of water from the street in a smaller area than, say, just what it is now. You look at the street, you look at where that old commercial property was, you look at the tennis court footprint, that's an enormous area. The parking lot adjacent to the tennis courts and the parking lot adjacent to the BCSO building, that starts to add up to some pretty sizable amounts of storage capacity under the shuffleboard courts. That could be a lot. Not saying that a tree or two would have to be removed for whatever reason. Construction can happen, things like that. That's always a possibility, but maximizing both, I think, is important. And I think that could be done with enough engineering. Engineering is a beautiful thing.
I think that's a great point that Zach brings up. From what I'm gathering from all our discussions here, is that if we go forward with this, Kimley Horn's going to be required to keep an eye towards canopy tree preservation in this entire project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my comment is limiting the scope. Go under the road and the open lots. Let's do that stormwater. We could do that right now. But it's just very limited. If this is stormwater first, do under the Civic Hub, the Sheriff's Department parking lot. And I just don't see, maybe under the racquetball pads and the shuffleboard pads inside there, but there's roots, just not an engineer. It just doesn't seem like it would work. And that's why this proposal from Kimley Horn is excellent. And I'm excited about it, but it's just like 3 weeks too early for me, because this is not just $98,000. This is saying we want to explore a massive, this arguably would want to be one of the biggest, probably the biggest redevelopment in the city. And so it's something that if we were to do any type of survey or talk with the citizens today, it's should we pursue this project? And I'm not convinced that it is the only option we have. And if you are right, Councilmember Willis, which I'm not saying you're not, I will fully support that. If this truly is, if it's the pump and the tidal valve, and this is the next best, then I agree. But I think that there could be other opportunities in the city as well. And that's where I get some anxiety, is because the Mead and Hunt study is over here. They do say any other opportunities. And so I just want to make sure that this fits. So hope we can work forward. I would request that we wait till the thing, but if we must spend $100,000 today, I am not going to support that. And I say that respectfully. I think this golf cart study we were patient with to do it right, and I'm asking for the same here. So thank you.
I understand what everybody's saying and the concerns, but just because we approve it tonight doesn't mean they start tomorrow. You know, we can approve it and then they can see what comes out of, what comes out of the next meetings and what people want and what everything else. So it's not like we have to wait to approve this. We have to decide whether we want to do this and move forward. And then we get the public's input on exactly what they want. And then that way we've already got them in place to do this study, and then they hear what the public want and what works best. So I'm for approving it tonight so that we can move forward.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, if you can hear us, we still cannot hear you. I'd like to make sure you don't have any comments on this. It's showing that you are still muted. Still working over there, it looks like. So yes, what I don't want is that the citizens come to this and say, this isn't the highest priority. We should have done this after these other projects. And we last year we did awesome. We ranked all the projects, and I want to go back through that again. So that's it.
But to me, if we want to address the flooding and if we're going to work on the presidential streets, these two have to connect. I mean, you don't want them to work on the presidential streets and do all this with flooding. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to add, this at the Civic Hub, and then it's going to cost more money. They need to put this all together at one time. And if we don't approve it, they can't interconnect the two areas together for the appropriate drainage.
Councilmember Willis?
I'm not going to object to holding off to the strategic planning retreat, but I still vehemently feel that we need to take advantage of as much as possible. Now, we can rank it, prioritize it. We can come up with additional arguments. We may even come up with additional ideas on what can be done there and still save the foliage integrity. So, but I think given what we have in our inventory of space, this is a prime opportunity for whatever we can put in without disturbing as many of the oaks that we have. So I won't object to holding off on this till the strategic planning retreat, but
I'll be ready to move in March regular council meeting if you're willing to do that.
Yeah.
I can commit to that.
I'm sorry, I was muted there. The strategic planning retreat is March 29th, which is after the March council meeting. If council doesn't want to make a decision on this item until after the retreat, you could postpone to a date certain to be the April council meeting, which would be April 18th.
I agree. I think waiting till after, bring this to the strategic planning meeting and hold off to it, the next council meeting.
It's an exciting project.
It is very
I'm
exciting.
not-
You know, and we're also, you know, with the renovation of Veterans Park, there's a stormwater component to that now that they're trying to get a grant for, so that will help. I just think it should be brought to the strategic planning meeting so we can prioritize and it's an exciting project. I, you know, hate to see us lose any trees at all, but I would be in favor of waiting, bringing this to the strategic planning meeting and then to the April council meeting. Thank you.
Well, I just want to make sure that's okay, and I appreciate. Councilmember Willis?
Don't guess that we really need to do any action or just postpone it.
Right, and that will have a corresponding effect, of course, on the timeline. Earlier, they were saying they had a timeline deliverable of September 1st. I'm sure this will push that back at least 2 months.
Okay, so the benefit of postponing it to a time certain would be, it would set it, but if will you have enough time coming out of the strategic planning meeting? If not,
To update.
yeah, for that April.
Yeah, we would represent it just as it is tonight on the April council meeting with any changes that came out of the retreat.
Okay, I agree. I don't think we need to formally vote any postponement, but if you want consensus, are we okay with
And just
that?
one more data point, Mayor. Dave, do you have any idea if Kimley Horn is okay with holding this price for another 2 months? Okay. Yeah, I feel the same way. There is that risk, Mayor, but I don't think they would be raising the price in 2 months.
We would appreciate that. Thank you. Council, any more questions? And city manager, any more?
No, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem? Is, city clerk, does anyone have any direct communication with Mayor Pro Tem Raymond? Is she, okay. Is there anything that I can do with the control? She is still on. It says she's connected. It gives me an option to mute her. I don't want to.
Yes, I would like to speak about this. I would like to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm in favor of moving forward. I think that we can benefit by getting the professional advice from Kimley Horn, starting with the engineering and then working through the stormwater wastewater project that we want to put underneath. I think it's time to move forward on this. I am not in favor of necessarily cutting trees. Another reason why we should do it now is because we can start, you know, once we get the engineering study, we can start applying for different grants for both the stormwater wastewater project to alleviate some of the flooding and also for some of the beautification things. And the residents that I've talked to are very excited about this project. So I think that we need to move forward. I like the idea of doing it now rather than waiting another 2 months. My reasoning for that is I worry about prices going up. We've had problems before with certain items that they went up significantly when we hesitated. I say do not hesitate at this point. I'm very much in favor. I agree with Councilman Willis and Councilman Davis that it is time to move forward. So if you cannot hear me, I already will vote in favor. I would like to vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, if you don't mind, just keep, we got you live. Don't unmute. we're going to go, I think we're ready to go ahead and vote. So while we
Thank
have
you.
you.
Do you want me to put forward a motion?
That would be lovely.
All right, so I move that we approve the the proposal from Kimley Horn and Associates in the amount of $98,600 to prepare the Civic Hub Master Plan and authorize city manager to execute same. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Looking for a second if there. Okay. Got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Raymond, second by Councilmember Davis. Council, any discussion? I understand that. I don't think 2 months is going to increase the price. That's my only comments. So
I would rather wait until, well,
So I'm not going to support the motion. That's my comments, but that's okay. We move forward.
We had public comment.
I'm sorry. Yes, I was going to make sure that council didn't have any questions on the discussion, and then I saw you signaling. You're saying you filled out another card? I have 3 cards from you. Okay, sorry. Sure. Please come forward. Yes.
This, as you may remember, in the initial visioning effort for the city was a huge priority. It was the town center concept. And I think the council supported what was the promenade. This project was so significant last year. And I just really believe that lost time now is the time, in my observation of listening to you all tonight, is an opportunity to start converging a lot of these strategic priorities that you're understandably anticipating out of the retreat in March. But I think to go ahead and enable the consultant to start the effort now is just, it's going to all converge, and I think will help influence to delay it. I just feel pain in my heart that we're going to delay it 2 months before we even start giving direction. I think the residents have already spoken on this. And if you do take the initial strategic plan, this was the visioning effort, this was a huge priority. And it's gotten even more beautiful when you think about it. I love your idea, Wes, about preserving the trees. As you say, that would just be glorious in the whole concept of the stormwater and convergence, the master plan for the residential streets, and just the whole planning for the city. I just can't imagine this being a low priority for the residents. We also have an opportunity to apply for federal grants. I think, as was mentioned, all sorts of funds are available to the city now. And with Jason's help, we'll be able to hopefully get some leverage, at the state level as well. So I just encourage you to go ahead and support it, help these efforts converge as we're working together on all of this.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Anyone else fill out a comment card that I missed? I don't think so. Okay, back to the council. We got a motion on the floor and a second to approve it as written. Any other comments? Okay, City Clerk?
Councilmember Davis? For. Councilmember Kellum?
against.
Mayor Morrison?
Against?
Mayor Pro Tem Raymond?
For.
Councilmember Willis?
For.
Mayor will be sure to pass along the message about prioritizing canopy tree preservation in the design.
So that is moving forward. We're not waiting till April, just to be clear.
Moving forward now.
Okay. I thought that you wanted to wait till April. I just want to make sure that that represents your, okay, thank you. Sometimes confusion, the opposite. All right, the motion passes 3-2 to move forward. Thank you all very much. Any final clarity on that, City Manager, that you need? You're good? Okay, excellent. Now we are moving on to item number 11, which is review, revise as needed. Oh, I'm sorry, 10. Thank y'all. Review, revise as needed, and adopt the updated community vision statement. An exciting one. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Last year, we embarked upon, it was 10 years since our vision statement was created. We did a revisioning. Doug Thomas from SGR led us through that. There were several community workshops. The report was approved by City Council many months ago. The only thing that we got hung up a little bit was the draft language of the vision statement in the revision report. City Council gave staff some direction and some words to use and language that would resonate with residents about how we actually see our city, but also make it simpler, make it more meaningful. So staff came up with this, and I can't say that this was all my work because I've got some really talented people, including Molly and Lisa and Zach, who put so much hard work into this. And this is the draft community vision statement that we came up with. And if you don't mind, Mayor, I'll read it aloud for everyone.
I think that's pretty important to read, yes.
Cape Canaveral, a warm, inclusive beachside community that embraces its small town feel and enhances the beauty and integrity of its natural environment, promoting resilience, safety, sensible mobility with an emphasis on pedestrian needs, business-friendly development, and responsible community stewardship through a shared commitment to a balanced, respectful, and neighborly philosophy that inspires future-ready essential civic services and quality of life amenities. And if I could just brag just a little bit more, Mayor.
Please.
There are two semicolons in there that really separate this vision statement into three distinct thirds. The first one says who we are, an inclusive beachside community embracing a small town feel, the beauty and integrity of its natural environment. That's just undoubtedly who we already are. The second third talks about what we want to be, what we want to do with our time here while we're all working with the city and having ability to impact things like this and all of our agendas. And we want to promote resilience, safety, and mobility, emphasis on pedestrian needs, and so on. And we're including community stewardship, and we've seen that no more prevalent than the recent COH planning, where people just really take pride in this community and want to help out. The third one is how we intend to do it. So the third part says, through a shared commitment to balanced, respectful, and neighborly philosophy that inspires future-ready services and quality of amenities. Those three things are the stools that make up this vision statement. And I think it totally works for our city. It creates what we call among our team buckets. And those buckets are in that first third. Small town feel, that's a bucket. Enhancing beauty and integrity, that's a bucket. Promoting resilience, promoting safety, promoting sense. All these buckets give us targets. When we're creating an agenda item, we want to make sure it's going to land in one of or more of those buckets. And same thing with the city council. When you're creating agenda items, you want to make sure they land in one of these buckets. That's how we defend what we're trying to do. Hey, it's in our vision statement. This is who we are, and we can defend the actions that we're taking. If we can't put them in one or more of those buckets, then we probably ought to rethink putting it forward. That's all I have to say on that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any comments, questions on this one?
I think it's excellent. Thank you for the hard work.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I think it's great. And I know how much time was spent with Molly Thomas's team and the entire staff. Thank you very much. Congratulations. I think you nailed it.
Any other comments?
I think it's very good as well. I think it says everything it needs to say, and I think it's excellent. Good job.
I just hope it fits on the wall.
We're not going to have the applique on the wall anymore. It's going to be in a nice picture frame. So the action here, Mayor, is if there's a motion, it would be to adopt the updated community vision statement.
Yes, I just want to give my compliments as well. Thank you. This has come to the council a few times. I think the last time we said we read it similar, and then some shoulders just shrugged, and it's not there. And over the period, this has been a dramatic improvement. I think you nailed it. And the beauty of vision statements is if there's something wrong, we can mold it and shape it and continue to refine it. But this is ready to hit the go button for me for sure. So thank you. Looking for a motion?
Make a motion to adopt it.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Willis, second by Councilmember Davis to adopt the community and vision statement. City Clerk.
Councilmember Davis?
4.
Councilmember Kellum?
4.
Mayor Morrison?
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Raymond?
4.
Councilmember Willis.
4.
All right, vision statement. Item number 10, motion passes 5-0, which now we shift out of items for action, and we are now on to items for discussion. Item number 11, electric vehicle charging stations submitted by Councilmember Willis. Councilmember.
Yes, about a year ago, I introduced the idea of replacing the free charging stations around the city with pay for charging. And the staff explored options and was entered in contract negotiations with Rivian to supply that. And I understand that it is now kind of fallen apart, and I wanted to ask Zach to update us on where we are on possibilities and moving forward to achieve this. So.
Sure. Yeah. So for those that don't know, Rivian is an EV auto manufacturer who was looking to build out their own dedicated charging station network. Their go-to business model is that of adventure vehicles. They have a line of SUVs and pickup trucks that are all electric. To support that, they're looking to install about 10,000 charging stations across the entire country, and they have started to do that. But in the last few months, as with a lot of tech companies, there have been some economic setbacks and layoffs, and they came back to us stating that the project that we were negotiating that would have seen a swap out of our stations was not in their budget anymore, unfortunately. So I come to you with some bad news. But that being said, the EV charging station market is healthy and vast and quite mature now. And there are plenty of other options that we could explore. I'm a big proponent of electrification in the transportation sector for many reasons. And we as a leader in our sustainability and resilience initiative should definitely try to continue this as the sector grows quite quickly. In December of 2022, the EV market share across the globe surpassed 10% for the first time. So it is growing very quickly. And by the end of the decade, the transportation sector will probably look quite different than it does now. So that being said, we're exploring options with Florida Power and Light, who are heavily invested into this and seem to be a leader in this among utilities across the country, both for public and fleet charging options, which is very cool. We had a discussion with them today that went pretty well to explore public options and to explore fleet options. Now, the program that they had that would have seen a swap out of the stations equivalent to what we currently have has sunset, unfortunately. That being said, they are exploring DC fast charging options, which are charging stations that can recharge your vehicle in anywhere from 20 to 50 minutes. Very powerful, very quick. Those would probably not be accessible to us on this particular site, just because of the infrastructure requirements. But that being said, they're looking for commercial partners that the city could connect them with, which is something that we could definitely explore, being that we have the growth of the city, the aquarium, the port, all that good stuff. So that's something that we're engaged in now. That also being said, the council could direct staff to easily explore other charging stations options. We were actually quite far along with that initiative before Rivian approached us and said, hey, maybe we could do this for you for really no cost. There would be a cost, obviously, but we would begin to recoup that with charging or requiring payment of the stations, which I think is, appropriate this time given where the market is. So a lot of that research was already done, and we could easily budget for that if you so wish. In the next fiscal year, we could do it in phases. We could do it all at once. There are many options available, payment plans available, a lot of versatility. So that's pretty much where we're at. And if you have any questions, I could try and answer them.
Councilmember Willis.
Zach and I have discussed this quite a few times, but I would like to see the city move forward and replace the free option with the paid. And there are quite a few options that we can go with. So I would like to see it.
I wholeheartedly agree. Picking up where you left off, that's encouraging. If you're looking for support of that, I would say yes, pick it back up, add all the new options that we think are suitable, and compare it to FPL's option and try to give the council, a spectrum of ideas and allow us to. The intent, from what I understand, the electric charging, which happened slightly before I came on, was to create a reputation that we're a city that promotes this, and we want to help spur that. In the few locations we've had them, now I think we were successful in that. And thanks to city manager's willingness to invest in the resources and your team and David and everyone in community development on the sustainability side, Alexis, who's been a part of it. We're out front. So I think our decision on this electric charging station, a lot of other cities are going to watch us too, because we've got all the right people to, I think, hold some merit on doing it. The state of Florida is getting very aggressive. Governor DeSantis and the legislature, the main corridors, we're going to see a lot of those level 3 DC direct charging stations happening. Cape Canaveral being a main outlet where 528 runs right through here. It'd be interesting to see. I don't think we qualify for the state site, for some of the state sites, but just saying, hey, we're pulling our weight over here too, might get their attention as well. So I support getting off of the old and with the new, most importantly, charging. Thank you. That was all I had.
I was just saying I support it as well, so.
I support it as well. And is there grant programs out there for things like this?
There's starting to be with the Inflation Reduction Act. There's opening a lot of federal funds for this. There's a lot of finance options. It's very creative nowadays. And we'll try and pursue all avenues and come back with what makes sense.
I definitely support it.
Vice Mayor, also we have money set aside that you approved back in November, the previous November with ARPA that talked about community and business needs. Community unspecified. This is an excellent thing that helps the community to, if we're going to put it in the budget, we could use ARPA funds for this.
Well, I think that it's going to be a cost up front, depending on which model we use, but this is unprecedented in the state of Florida. I mean, for hundreds of years, you pretty much had one utility or municipal utility or one of the utilities who exclusively sold electricity in the state, whether it be Florida Power and Light, Tampa, or TECO, Duke Energy, all your municipal. And now, for the first time ever, the sale of electricity, as long as it's through an EV charging station, as I understand it, is legal. For lack of better words, is allowed by private. So, and what was even more interesting is how high they went on the kilowatt hour rate. So that investment up front will be part of the cost. The Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, also applied, I believe, the 30% tax credit now, which we did not qualify for the community center. Now they have a direct payment option, as I think we were talking about, which allow our city to, if it's $10,000, $3,000 comes off the top, which is absolutely huge. And to think that it can be a revenue generator on the backs, especially if they're, somebody can charge in a reasonable time, I think it could be cash flow positive for us. And maybe pay back those first few years of tier 1 trickle charging that was going out and look at it. But that's one option. There's many out there. And great. I think we got that one wrapped up. Mayor Pro Tem Raymond.
Yes, I'd like to say I'm very much in favor of this. Again, I think we've been very progressive and we've been recognized for our leadership in this. And kudos to Zach and the staff, and they're keeping us moving forward. And as I said, I know when I sit on Space Coast League of Cities, people are actually getting envious of everything that we're doing in Cape Canaveral. That's why I keep saying, let's move forward. Thank you very much. And thanks to Zach. I know, Zach, you really have been wonderful about sustainability and resiliency. I've said before, one of the biggest investments we made is when we hired you. Kudos.
Zach, you are getting a lot of love tonight, my friend. From the smartest guy. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Item number 10.
Or 11
is in the bin. We're now, or 11. I've been one off or one after. We are now moving on to uncharted territory for this council in 2023. I want the record to show it is 8:18 p.m. and we are at reports. So if there are any reports at this time, now is the time. You can go down the line. Roy County Sheriff's Office, any reports that we want to know? Thank you. I don't know if we have any fire representative here today. City Manager?
I just want to talk briefly about the Port Canaveral Mayor's Breakfast. Mayor Morrison and I attended last week. with the 5 cities in the Port District. And it was a very informal meeting with Port leadership and these 5 cities to talk about whatever you wanted to talk about. And there's a couple takeaways that I wanted to report on from that. One is there's been a rumor floating around that the Cove Redevelopment District might be on the horizon again, and they said, no, that's not going to happen. The other one that was important to me was there was a question that raised about why don't we open those locks more to get tidal flushing and to help our lagoon. And he mentioned that something I had never heard before was they have a very high investment in their channel depth. So they're around 50 feet in channel depth in the port. And at the locks, on the other side of the locks, it's much shallower than 50 feet. So having those locks open bring sediment into the channel. And that's very expensive for them to maintain that channel depth. So that's another reason they don't want to keep those locks open. And that just wasn't widely enough known. So I wanted to put that out there, Mayor. And unless there's anything else you remember from that.
And they were talking about the salinity, the projects, I think, that is increasing the salt levels in the lagoon.
Yep.
The locks, but no, it was a fantastic meeting. Captain Murray, CEO of the port, called all the mayors who were in the district of the port together. And I think we learned a lot.
Yep.
And the port wants to work with us. And thank you. And that's all my report as well.
Mayor,
Yes.
I just would like to say the CO planting went fabulous again this year. We had a lot of people come out and help, and people are excited about that and excited about owning their little lot of COs growing. So it went really well. We had a lot of volunteers, and we had Mr. Petty, he was here earlier. He donated coffee and donuts, and that was awesome to everybody that was planning. And the weather was so much nicer than last year. So I just wanted to say it was a great event again, and thank you for getting it together, staff.
So, Mr. Mayor, just wanted to make you aware that I've asked Space Coast TPO to set up a booth with me at Friday Fest next week to promote bike safety and e-bike laws, bicycle laws, and they're going to have all different kinds of things, helmet fittings, giveaways, all kinds of things at Friday Fest. But in the future, we're going to try to coordinate a bicycle e-bike rodeo in conjunction with the movie in the park, and have Space Coast TPO do some educational things and try to coordinate with the Sheriff's Department as well. So that may be more April or May, but they will be at Friday Fest next week to promote bicycle safety.
So anyone who has a concern about e-bike should go there. I'll help get that word out. Thank you. That's important.
No, I was also going to comment on the COs. It was a wonderful day. We did have a great turnout. Get some people to go further south maybe a little bit, but other than that, it was good. And I just wanted to second what Angelo, our Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem Raymond said about League of Cities. We are really, people do envy us, and it's because of our wonderful staff. And we get comments all the time when we're at the meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I just wanted to say I did attend Space Coast League of Cities. This is the one meeting per year in Rock Ledge where we're introduced to the people from Florida League of Cities, and we had the vice president speak to us this year because Jolene was not involved at that point, and it was a very good meeting. And also we talked at the executive board about the priorities for this year for the legislative meeting. And one about affordable housing, which is now called accessible housing, is one of the #1 priorities. And I am on the advocacy team for the first time. I feel like a very, very, very novice, but I am learning. I've asked Mindy Gibson, who is in charge of advocacy for Space Coast League of Cities, to please help me. I've been invited to go along with her to Tallahassee 2 or 3 times already. However, this Balinese trip which is probably not going to be offered again along the Indonesian archipelago. And it was a 27-hour air ride. However, we made it. And the resort is absolutely beautiful. It's actually in the jungle of Ubud. If you see the movie Ticket to Paradise, you can see where I'm going today, to the Elephant Cave. So I highly recommend that, although it's a rather silly movie. And greetings from Bali. I will be going on my tour very shortly. Thank you very much.
I guess you can legislate from Bali and you'll lobby from France and we'll run this city. Well, thank you very much. And I'm so happy, and thanks staff for making that possible. It's an amazing world we live in, that you can be on the other side of the planet and we can host a meeting. So thank you. All right, with that, if I didn't leave anyone, any final comments? City Attorney?
I have one more comment, Mayor.
Please.
One more comment. Congratulations. It's one of the fastest meetings we've ever had. So congratulations. I realize now that we can do it. Thank you.
And with that, meeting adjourned.